Hi, everyone. We're done with the regular videos for this unit as far as going in chronological order. So now I'm just going to take a couple of quick minutes to go over some of the standards that we still have left to do. So these will be shorter than the other videos, but will be good reinforcement, especially before you do the activities or as you complete the reflections. So this is for standard 6, which is to assess the impact of the printing press and other technologies developed on the dissemination of ideas. And honestly, we're just going to focus on the printing press because that was the most significant one. So this is a little bit of review. We already learned how the Renaissance began in Italy and then it spread, and we have the Northern Renaissance as a result. So by the late 1400s and through the 1500s, the Renaissance was spreading. It spread to what's now Germany, France, England, even Spain, even though we don't always consider Spain the Northern Renaissance. So there were some differences between the Renaissance um, in the North and in Italy. We saw that when I saw many of you who did those Venn diagrams on the differences. But they still used the Renaissance tools and ideas, different ideas concerning humanism, about searching for the truth and questioning authority and all those sorts of things. Now, sometimes this was used against the clergy. Not so much to attack the clergy, but just to sort of sharpen things and to question things and to see if what they were being told was what the Bible suggested, but also was it original Christianity? In other words, was original Christianity the same Christianity that they were receiving from Italy, if you were, in the North? So, what helped all these ideas spread? A few things. We learned about the growing economic prosperity from the Renaissance. Um, it was a peaceful time for the most part. There was a complete peace, but there was a decline of famine. Right, we don't have the Black Plague anymore. So now you have a lot of funding for schools and for colleges. So in these schools, the sons of gentlemen and nobles would get a humanist education, which was basically imported from Italy. And the purpose of these educations was to prepare them for a career in the church or maybe the civil service. Now, also, you have inspiration from the printing press coming from block printed things, whereas characters or pictures were carved into wooden blocks, inked, and then transferred to paper. Now, each word, phrase, or picture was on a separate block, so this method was still expensive and it was still time consuming. This idea actually arrived from China, as you see in the example there. Um, Playing cards was actually a common thing they would receive that was done that way. But by the middle of the 15th century, which is the middle 1400s, several different masters in this print industry were on the verge of perfecting these techniques with movable type. So, in other words, they could rearrange letters over and over again, not just make one block for each specific thing. So, the first man to really demonstrate this was Johannes Gutenberg. And he was the son of a noble family from Mainz in Germany. He was a stone cutter and a goldsmith. And he devised an alloy of lead and tin and antimony that would melt at a very low temperature. And therefore, it cast well and it would be very durable in what became his printing press. It was then possible to use and reuse these pieces over and over again as long as the metal in which they were cast in it wear down, and then you could arrange each letter in a desired order. So the mirror image of each letter, rather than an entire word or an entire phrase, was carved in a small block. So individual letters that were easily movable were put together to form words. They had blank spaces, not splaces, um, and you could just line them up and make a page. So a variety of texts could be used by printing, by reusing and resetting. So Gutenberg started this idea around 1436. Then he borrowed some money, and in 1452, he began his famous Bible project. About 200 copies of the Gutenberg Bible were printed, They were expensive, they were beautiful, and they were completed and sold at the 1455 Frankfurt Book Fair. Today, it would be about the equivalent of 3 years' pay. And there's still about 50 Gutenberg Bibles today. My apologies for our infamous senior health class next door. All right, those are things Gutenberg did not print about. Anyway, Gutenberg tried to keep his technique a secret so he could monopolize off it, but this idea spread rapidly. And before 1500, some 2,500 European cities had acquired some sort of printing press. German masters sort of led this technology, but Italians still challenged them. Um, a very famous Venetian printer, Aldus Manutius, for example. So the effects of this is that the printing press was able to create many more books than beforehand. It made information available to a much larger segment of the population who were eager for information. Libraries can now keep greater numbers of information at a much lower cost. Printing also facilitated the dissemination of ideas and the preservation of knowledge. And it was important, as we learn soon about the scientific revolution, to advance these ideas. The printing press initiated what they call an information revolution, which is just about as equivalent as what we have as the revolution from the internet today. It's also sometimes called the printing revolution. So printing could, and it did, spread new ideas quickly and with a greater impact. The printing press stimulated the literacy or the reading capabilities of your average person, and it began to have a deep and lasting impact on their private lives. Most of the earliest books dealt with religious subjects, but um, people, not just religious leaders, like people in the church, could now read these books, but also read books on other subjects. Manuals became popular. They weren't all like novels or information kind of academic books. Also, think about how beforehand, when books were handwritten, it was easy to make mistakes that could then be continued to be made. And this limited the amount of mistakes that could be made. Also, it gave all scholars the same text to work from, making it more reliable and all those sorts of things. I forgot to mention, and I know it was here in the slide, that besides just the printing press, Gutenberg came up with a lot of other things. He created a unique oil-based ink, which transferred from the metal types to the paper much more effectively than water-based inks that other printers were trying to use at first. So that's a little overview of just what it was and why it was so important. All right, so I will see you guys soon.